Hey, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you a thought. Have you ever thought that this job used to feel right, but I'm not so sure anymore? You are not alone. Okay, the truth is that we evolve. Okay, and sometimes the career that we built ourselves doesn't evolve with us. All right. I am John Martinez. I am the Next Step Coach. And in this video, we're talking about how to rediscover who you are before you make a big career move. Okay. Because the worst thing that you can do is pivot into another role, into another job that isn't aligned with you. Okay. And let's make sure that your next step is going to fit who you've become, not who you used to be. Because the last thing you need to do is go into a job that you think is going to fix that feeling that you're feeling right now of unfulfillment, of overwhelm, of depression, and you go into this job and you feel exactly the same. Okay. And I'm going to give you 5 key things that you can look out for and how they help me in my pivot. Okay. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about is you've evolved, but has your career. Okay. The person who chose your current career path may not be the person that you are now. Okay. And one thing that was very apparent with me when I transitioned, right? I transitioned in 2015 from the military to the civilian side. Okay. And reflecting now on it, because when I transitioned in 2015, it took me 7 years to get to the goal, right? Which was leadership position in Fortune 100 company making 6 figures. But what I failed to realize, and if I would have just done it a little bit earlier, in 2015, if I would have reflected at that time and seen how my career or how I had evolved and my career hadn't. Okay. So going from the military, it can be a very black and white process. Okay. It's very, I don't want to say it's very easy, but there is things in the military that pretty much tell you how to do everything. Okay. There is policies and procedures for everything. There are rules that you have to follow, right? There is frameworks for your promotion path. I mean, they're pretty much written out for you. Hey, do this, go to this school, take this type of assignments, get this kind of experience, connect with these people, and it's pretty much almost, I wouldn't say guaranteed, but it's a proven path on how you can get to those promotions and, keep rising up through the ranks, right? But when I got on the outside, it wasn't so clear, right? And one thing that I failed to do was fail to realize how I had changed throughout that time in the military. And instead, what I did is, because my experience was in logistics, distribution, and supply chain, I just kind of went with that, right? I never questioned, have I outgrown this? Okay. So I went into that field again, and another 7 years through that, once I finally got to that, successful position that I thought I wanted, well, now I hit a spot where everything felt off. I was in a job where I should have been happy and overjoyed that, I have this opportunity with this great company making great money in a leadership position. But instead, I felt very unfulfilled. I felt very overwhelmed, depressed. I just felt like something was missing, right? Something that I couldn't really put words to it. I couldn't really figure it out at the time of what was missing at that time, right? And a truth is that career dissatisfaction often begins with internal growth that isn't matched externally. Okay. And one thing that stood out to me was that the person that I was still chasing that person's goal, right? I hadn't taken the time to figure out what new John wanted, right? What new John's goals were, what his vision was, right? So I ask you right now, if you haven't taken the time, take the time a little bit to figure out how you have evolved over this time, okay? And ask yourself, has my career evolved with me? Okay. On number 2, I want to challenge you to get clear on what you actually value now. So, what mattered at 25 years old might not matter at 35, or what mattered at 22 might not matter at 32, right? Or even what mattered at 28 might not matter at 30 years old. Okay. A simple way of doing this, and this is something that I went through as well, is reevaluate your top five core values. Okay. When I did this, one core value that really stood out to me going through this process, reevaluating what my core values were when I first joined the military, then when I got out of the military, then when I started, in the civilian sector, and then when I was unhappy, right? And I was about to pivot. One core thing that really stood out to me, or a core value that really stood out to me, was my core value of love. Okay. Love had grown over that time, but I didn't capture it. I didn't see how I was personally growing, not just professionally growing. Okay. And let me explain that a little bit more. When I transitioned from the military, I had that goal set where I wanted to climb the corporate ladder. Okay, because I had done very well for myself in the military. I had climbed the ranks. For those that know, I was about to be an E7 in under 10 years, so that was a high accomplishment, right? And I got out just in that time frame where if I didn't get out, I was going to get promoted. I had done Audie Murphy. I had done like a lot of things to set myself apart from my peers. So now getting out, I was focused on the same thing. I was focused on how do I excel, right? I'm not the type of person that wants to live in a mediocre lifestyle or give mediocre effort. Okay, so I challenge myself. How do I do that on the outside where there's really no rules and regulations to tell you, right? Or policies to tell you, or frameworks to tell you, hey, this is exactly how you do it, right? So I challenged myself on that. But one thing that I realized that love aspect was growing out of me. And the reason I pinpointed that as one of my core values that had changed was because I started to ask myself, how am I affecting family and friends around me? How am I affecting the people that I'm working with? How am I affecting what I am giving back? Okay. And I didn't see that. Okay. A lot of it was very, I want to say, transactional or superficial. Okay. In my day-to-day work, right? Where I wanted to actually be touching more lives, be actually helping people, which led me to what I am doing now as a career coach and a consultant for small businesses. But I feel more of a sense of purpose now than I did then. Okay, because of that, focusing in on that love factor, right? This video that I'm doing right now is done with love, right? This is out of my wheelhouse. This is out of my comfort zone. Okay, this is me learning to do different things so I can touch different people and actually help them with what I've already learned, what I've already experienced, right? And hope that even if this reaches out to one person and really touches them in the sense of helping them figure out what questions to ask, helping them figure out where to look in their lives to be able to figure out where to pivot, right? To make that career more fulfilling, make that career more aligned with who they are now rather than who they were. Okay. So I would ask you, just take that challenge, reevaluate your top five core values, and then just simply ask yourself, is the current career that I am in aligned with those values or not? Okay. On number three, I would ask you, audit your energy, not just your time. Okay. So take note of what energizes you versus what drains you throughout your week, throughout your day. Okay. A simple exercise that I did that helped me was I carried around like 3x5 cards, carried around 3x5 cards, like five of them in my pocket. And I would write down times where I felt just drained already, times where I felt not mentally intrigued, not emotionally intrigued, right? Where I just felt like, blah, right? And the reason I started doing this was because I needed to capture what was going on in my day to day that was like ruining my day. So I had this like thought in my head, what if I can do something that I find just joy in, that I find happiness in? Like, what if I'm smiling all day long? I asked myself that question because I had noticed that throughout my days, I wasn't I'm not an unhappy person, but I wasn't really smiling to smile like with true joy. I was just checking the box, I guess you can say. I was just, hey, how you doing? Like, kind of thing like that. Where I'm like, is it truly coming from an authentic place inside of me where I am smiling and I am genuinely just joyful right now, that I'm genuinely just happy. So I started just carrying around and writing down, okay, today I got sad, right? Or I was just not mentally there or not emotionally there because of this or that, right? And sometimes it was very it was very eye-opening, because sometimes I'll get to work at like 6 and then by 6:30 I'm already feeling this way. And I was asking myself, like, why? What is going on? And then just breaking it down a little bit further, I was like, oh well, I'm working on problems that I really don't want to be working on anymore, because I don't feel a connection towards it, right? I felt a lot of what I was doing at the time was just more transactional actions, fixing problems within a company or organization to create value, but that value was more superficial. It was towards the company, reducing time, right? Um, Reducing operational risk, like things like that. It wasn't I'm directly helping somebody like I am now. Okay. I get an energy burst when I'm actually talking to somebody like on the other side of the camera, or talking to somebody in person or on a phone call, sharing with them my experience, listening to their experiences, why they feel stuck, and how I can help them. So that energizes me. Okay. So I want you to think of it like this: energy patterns often reveal misalignment before your mind catches on. Okay. And I can attest to that, because when I was feeling that way at the beginning, I couldn't logically put my finger on it. I couldn't logically tell you exactly what was going on. Therefore, that's why, I recommend this energy exercise, because that's what started revealing why my energy was so low at certain times. Like how I even thought about sleep. I was like, oh man, I need to get 8 hours of sleep, 9 hours of sleep. There was times where I was getting 10 hours of sleep, getting to work at 6, and by 7, I was just emotionally and mentally just checked out already. And it was due to this exercise that really helped me pinpoint, well, why don't I want to do this? Okay. So it was just kind of asking those questions. So I would encourage you, try this exercise out. It's just something simple. Just jot down any time that your energy just drains you. Or especially if you find something that really made you happy or joyful, write that down as well. All right. Capture that information. All right. Number 4 on this that I wanted to share with you is reconnect with your strengths and wins. A simple way for me to do this, and the way I did it, is I am an avid journaler. So I journal at least a minimum of 1 page a day. Not saying you got to be perfect about it. If you miss a day, that's fine or whatever. But what it helped me do is it helped me reflect on moments where I felt proud, alive, and like fully me. Okay. And let me explain this a little bit, because when I was going through what I was going through, especially in the beginning, I was at that company for about a year and a half, and I started noticing it almost like immediately, like within a month, 2 months, 3 months. I started noticing like there was that shift in me where I wasn't as fulfilled as I thought I should be. And one thing that I started doing is I started going back in my journal, and I started going back. I'll go back, 2 months. I'll go back 3 months. Then I just started flipping. Okay, 8 months ago, 9 months ago, a year ago. And I started reading what I was writing during those times. And a lot of it was just, overcome this, keep pushing on this. But then I started really honing in on certain words that I was using, like purpose, right? Like spirituality, like love. Things like that started popping out to me, where I was like, man, I was writing about this a year ago. How am I fulfilling that right now? How do I feel purpose in what I am doing right now? How am I fulfilling my purpose? Right. And all those little, I guess, pieces of information really helped me figure out where I was winning and where I was losing. Okay. And then I would take those wins that I was winning at, where, how am I getting closer to my purpose? Well, even though I don't feel purposeful right now, I feel I'm getting closer in the sense of realization. I'm getting closer in the sense of self-awareness. I am becoming more self-aware that I need something more than what I have right now. So those were the little wins that I was capturing. And I want to say like this, like your next step should come from a zone of genius and not just your resume. Okay. So speaking how I what I was telling you earlier about, has your career evolved with you? If I would have done this type of exercise back in 2015, because when I pivoted from the military, I went into operations management, I went into logistics, supply chain distribution sector or industry, right? Because that's what I was doing in the military. So if I would have done something similar to this, perhaps I would have chosen something different. Perhaps I would have realized then that, hey, instead of just going and getting another job, maybe you need to work towards your fulfillment. How has John changed in the past 10 years in the military? What might pique your curiosity? What energizes you then? What fulfills you then? And not saying it was a waste. I think it was purposeful, but perhaps I would have started seeing that a lot sooner than the 7 years that it took me to see it. Okay, so I hope this can help you. If you are not a if you are not a journaler, right? I don't even know if that's the right way to say it, but if you don't journal, let's put it that way. Maybe you can start. Maybe you can start and just start today. Devote yourself to just 1 page a day of journaling, whether you do it at night, in the mornings. I like to do it at night because it captures all my thoughts and actions throughout the day. But just start today and start just 1 page a day that you're going to write. Okay. Write what you feel, write what you did, actions, thoughts, happy moments, sad, whatever comes to your mind, just write. Don't, when I first started, I didn't really necessarily have an agenda to it. I would just write. Sometimes I would just write random thoughts because I didn't really know what to write. Okay. And it's interesting if you do that, because when you get enough written in there and you go back, you kind of see where your brain was going. You kind of see the patterns that were evolving out of that time. And I'm telling you, if you do that enough and you go back and read a month's worth of journaling, just even 1 page by 1 page by a day, like it'll truly reveal how your mind was adapting and changing during that time. So I would challenge you to do that. If you're not journaling yet, just start. But if you do have a journal, you do have something, a tool that you can kind of go back and reflect with, that'd be a great way to identify those strengths and wins that you have to help you build that confidence that you need for that next step. Okay. And lastly, the thing that I want to talk to you about is, are you still chasing a version of success that no longer fits you? Right. And this is kind of not just necessarily on, has your career changed with you, but are you identifying how you have changed? Okay. So when I had mentioned that I went from the military to the same sector, right? Logistics, supply chain industry. Okay. I had captured and I had made goals of how I had changed professionally, but I didn't really capture how I was changing and what my goals were personally. Okay. And that's what I think hindered me a lot in the beginning, because now I went into, after the military, the next 7 years were all just professional milestones that I was trying to hit and not necessarily personal. And it wasn't allowing me to let go of those old labels, those old salary goals, those old title goals, those old expectations of how I'm going to climb this corporate ladder, right? And if I would have done that and captured, okay, how is John actually changing personally? Maybe I would have seen, well, I don't feel like I have a lot of love right now coming out of me. I don't feel like I have a lot of purpose coming out of me, or I'm not necessarily fulfilled by this, but it's something that's comfortable to me because I already know it because I've been doing it. Okay. So, and it took me, I've said this before, during those 7 years, I was chasing a goal. Really, to sum it up, I was chasing the goal of the old version of John, where it wasn't applicable to me anymore. that didn't matter to me anymore, of climbing that corporate ladder, of getting that title, of getting that salary anymore, because my personal ambitions had already changed and I hadn't captured that. So I would advise you and encourage you to explore your identity. What is your personal brand, right? Who are you now versus who you were before, right? Does help with journaling, but just kind of start asking yourself just simple questions like, how have I changed over the past 6 months, over the past year, right? Ask some friends, ask your spouse if they've seen any changes in you, if they've seen how you've grown personally, right? Not just professionally, but personally as well as a person and everything. And, try capturing like little words that they're using, in a sense of, well, you're more patient, or you're more caring now than you were before, or hi, you laugh a lot less now than you did before, right? Try capturing those bits of information that people might give you, and then just explore yourself, just kind of sit with yourself. I know it's a hard thing to do. It may not come instantly to you, but I'm telling you, journaling would probably be the best way to just kind of start exploring this. And that's why I recommend, at least even if you're writing just one page a day. Okay. And I want to say this, like, rediscovery is a luxury. Okay. It's necessary for us to pause before we start seeing real progress in ourselves. Okay. Don't feel like you have to keep moving 100 miles an hour, especially now in a time where you feel like everything is moving that fast, right? Because the last thing you want to do is find yourself trying to find another job, pivot into another career, take another role, or something of that nature, right? Like you feel like, oh, the fear of missing out, right? If I don't do this right now, I'm going to miss out and I'll never be able to do it again, right? That's just false. Okay. Take time to pause a little bit to really figure out what that next step is going to be. Okay. To get you more aligned with who you are now. Okay. And if you're feeling lost, it's probably because you've been spinning on a path, right, that just no longer fits your values, no longer fits your energy, and no longer fits your identity. And that doesn't make you weak. Okay. For the longest time, I felt I felt like I was being ungrateful, right? Because I had gotten my goal and I was like, man, why am I asking for more? I have this good job in a good company making great money and I'm asking for more, like the audacity of myself, right? Like that's how I truly felt. And it wasn't that I was like ungrateful. It's just that I wanted something different. I wanted something more purposeful and fulfilling in my life. And it doesn't necessarily make you weak. Okay. It just tells you that you're ready. You're ready for something different. You're ready for something that's evolving from where you were. Okay. So if you are ready to explore your next chapter, I do have a career clarity quiz. It's on my website. It's www.professiontopurpose.com. Okay. And go ahead and take it. It's 10 simple questions that will provide you a little bit more perspective on if you are ready for a transition or a transformation. And it's going to help you identify what type of transition or transformation, if you need a total transformation or if you're just becoming aware right now. And it'll help you gain different steps or different things to do depending on what transition you're ready for. Okay. Because if you're barely becoming aware, there are certain steps that you can start taking. Like I said, the journaling right now might be a great way. If you're on the total transformation side and you're like, I'm ready to move now. Okay. There's going to be different steps to do rather than if you're just becoming aware right now. Okay. And if this resonated with you, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone that you feel might need it. Okay. And I'll see you next week. All right. For the next video. And just remember, you're not lost, you're just evolving.